In Riyadh, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol met Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and inked investment projects worth $15 billion. The two countries have now expanded their partnership to green energy and digital technologies, among many other areas. Israel and Hamas continue to engage in clashes amid a looming ground offensive into Gaza. International efforts are underway to free hostages in Gaza and prevent a wider regional conflict. More than a dozen lumpy skin cases have been reported in cattle in Korea since the first outbreak last week, prompting the authorities to do all they can to stop further contagion. It's October 23rd, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jeon Min-jae. We start in Saudi Arabia, where President Yoon Suk-yeol held summit talks with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. They agreed to ramp up their cooperation so that it's not just limited to oil-based ties, but it can encompass future-oriented ties with some $15 billion worth of deals signed. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young reports from Riyadh.
South Korea and Saudi Arabia agreed to ramp up their bilateral cooperation to a future-oriented strategic partnership in new industries, with over $15 billion worth of deals to be inked as they prepare for a post-oil economy. President Yoon Suk-yeol and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman held a summit in Riyadh Sunday, as Yoon becomes the first South Korean leader to make a state visit to Saudi Arabia. Their talks also fall upon the 50th anniversary of South Korean firms entering the kingdom's construction sector.
Until now, the bilateral relationship focused largely on one commodity, oil, and construction projects in Saudi Arabia dating back to the 1970s. But now, with the Saudi Vision 2030 looking to diversify away from oil and spark economic and social innovation, the two countries are expanding their cooperation into new promising areas.
As investments in nuclear power plants, green energy, digital technologies, and AI expand globally, our partnership with the Middle East region is moving to a stage that encompasses future industries such as hydrogen, IT, automobiles, and renewable energy.
Yoon said the two countries make optimal partners in growing their post-oil economies, reiterating the need for greater collaboration. He also asked bin Salman to play a leading role in stabilizing global oil prices amid market volatility. The Crown Prince welcomed the president's state visit and pledged to communicate more frequently with Yoon, saying Korea is a key partner in this Vision 2030. Agreeing to strengthen cooperation in the defense sector, the two leaders also saw eye-to-eye on the potential for partnership in fields such as tourism, smart farms, statistics, cybersecurity, and food and drug regulations. They also called for joint efforts to produce solid outcomes before holding a signing ceremony for key memorandums of understanding. These include a visa exemption scheme for diplomats and state officials, establishing a strategic partnership committee, and agreements to cooperate on hydrogen production and utilisation, government statistics, and regulatory procedures on food and medical products. The two leaders also welcomed the more than 50 business MOUs to be signed during Yoon's official visit, worth some $15.6 billion of investment, on top of the $29 billion Riyadh pledged to inject into South Korea last year. Also during their talks, Yoon and bin Salman discussed their response to the Israel-Hamas conflict, with the South Korean leader offering necessary support, including humanitarian assistance. Going forward, Yoon's office says, with South Korea's developmental experience and technological prowess, and Saudi's abundant resources and growth potential, the two countries can strike up synergy as they shift towards a sustainable future and look to overcome complex geopolitical challenges. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Riyadh.
In line with the deepening economic ties between South Korea and Saudi Arabia, dozens of business deals were signed in Riyadh during an investment forum, which centered on high-tech industries. Our Kim Do-yeon correspondent reports.
As South Korea and Saudi Arabia deepen economic cooperation with multi-billion-dollar projects between the two countries, an investment forum was held in light of President Yoon Suk-yeol's visit to Riyadh. President Yoon stepping up in front of around 300 business leaders and government officials from both sides, emphasized the synergy effect between the two countries.
첨단 기술력과 성공적인 산업 발전 경험을 보유한 한국과 풍부한 자본과 성장 잠재력을 갖춘 사우디가 손을 잡으면 그 어느 나라보다도 강력한 시너지를 만들어낼 수 있습니다.
According to the top office, 46 MOUs and deals have been signed from this event, and around 30 were deals in high-tech industries and new businesses. This includes Hyundai Motors building an EV plant in Saudi Arabia, as well as deals related to hydrogen energy production as Saudi Arabia prepares itself for the post-oil economy.
이제 양국 간 협력 관계도 원유 건설 협력을 넘어 제조업, 스마트 인프라, 청정 에너지 등 비전 2030 관련된 전 분야로 파트너십을 확장해야 합니다.
South Korea's food and snack producer Nongshim signed deals with Saudi greenhouses to develop smart farms in the country. Punglim Pharmatech, a South Korean medical device manufacturer, agreed to create a Saudi plant. And there were deals in other new types of businesses such as robotics and aesthetics. For conventional areas such as infrastructure and energy, Korea National Oil Corporation and Saudi Arabia's state-run energy company Aramco signed a contract to cooperate in petroleum storage, as well as MOUs for cooperation in Saudi's new smart city construction projects.
양국 경제인 여러분, 이제 사우디는 아시아와 유럽, 아프리카를 연결하는 명실상부한 글로벌 허브 국가로 도약하고 있습니다. 대한민국과 사우디가 함께 써내려갈 새로운 역사의 주인공은 바로 이 자리에 계신 경제인 여러분들입니다.
In terms of Saudi's creation of new cities, President Yoon and the First Lady Kim Gun-hee visited the historical Saudi Arabian town of Darya near Riyadh soon after landing on Saturday. There, President Yoon was asked by Saudi officials to help South Korea participate in a $20 billion project to develop this region. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
President Yoon, becoming the first world leader to speak at Saudi Arabia's King Saud University, has highlighted the role to be played by the young people of Korea and Saudi Arabia as the first movers for peace and prosperity across the world. The South Korean president on Monday addressed around 2,000 university students. Yoon said exchanges between Korea and Saudi Arabia date back more than 1,000 years, and their special relationship since the 1970s helped set the stage for South Korea's rapid economic development. He encouraged the students to become first movers who pioneer and lead new industries and put special emphasis on the growing role of women in Saudi society. He pledged to develop study abroad programs for Saudis in cutting-edge fields such as bio, medical, and renewable energy, and strengthening female leadership. Moving on, international efforts remain underway to free hostages in Gaza and prevent a wider regional conflict, while countries also pledge humanitarian support for civilians. But Israel continues to intensify its airstrikes on Gaza ahead of what its spokesperson described as the next stage of the war. Shin Ha-young has the latest.
Israel and Hamas engaged in limited clashes in Gaza on Sunday. An Israeli soldier was killed by an anti-tank missile during a raid into the city aimed at clearing the area and gathering intelligence about hostages held by Hamas.
During one of the raids, an Israeli Defense Forces soldier was killed and 3 soldiers were wounded. Their families have been notified.
This came after the Israeli military announced that it would strengthen its airstrikes on Gaza ahead of what its spokesperson described as the next stage of the war. Israel ramped up its bombing of targets on 3 fronts, including airstrikes on the West Bank. Meanwhile, a day after 20 trucks carried medical aid, food, and water into Gaza on Saturday, another 17 trucks moved through the Rafah crossing with more humanitarian aid. For the second straight day, aid was allowed into the Palestinian enclave during a short window as Israel continued preparations for a ground offensive. Amid growing fears that the fighting between Israel and Hamas could escalate into a wider geopolitical conflict, CNN reports that the Biden administration has pressed Israel to delay its ground invasion of Gaza for the release of more hostages held by Hamas and to allow more humanitarian aid to reach the area. U.S. President Joe Biden, in a virtual meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday, welcomed the entry of the first aid convoys into the Gaza Strip. The White House said both leaders affirmed their commitment to the ongoing humanitarian aid for Gaza and celebrated the release of 2 American hostages by Hamas. It also called for the immediate release of all remaining hostages. President Biden also held a virtual meeting with leaders from Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom to discuss the Israel-Hamas conflict, which has the potential to escalate to other parts of the Middle East, with clashes already happening on the Israel-Lebanon border. The White House stated that President Biden discussed his recent visit to Israel and efforts to ensure food, medicine, and other humanitarian support for residents of Gaza. Western leaders pledged to work together closely for lasting peace in the Middle East and to provide support to their citizens in the region, particularly those who wish to leave Gaza. Sinan-gun, Arirang News.
Here in Korea, more than a dozen lumpy skin cases have been reported in cattle since the first outbreak last week. The authorities have freed up more funds to fight contagion. Yoon has the details.
South Korea's first ever case of lumpy skin disease was discovered last week when 4 cows were found to have had symptoms at a farm in Seosan, Chungcheongnam-do province. Since then, the number of cases has risen to 14 as of Monday morning, with reports of more suspected cases across the country. In response, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety announced on Sunday that special subsidies worth over 10 billion Korean won, or almost $7.5 million will be provided to halt the spread of the disease. Subsidies will be allocated to support disease prevention activities by local governments, including the operation of base disinfection facilities. The government has raised the crisis alert level to serious, the highest level in its 4-tier system. And starting Monday, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety is conducting joint inspections with the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and Rural Affairs in 5 West Coast regions. Cattle farms in Gyeonggi-do, Chungcheongnam-do, Jeollabuk-do, Jeollanam-do provinces, and Incheon will be inspected as part of a disease prevention process. Lumpy skin disease is a viral disease in cattle transmitted by blood-feeding insects, with symptoms including blisters and lower milk production. The disease does not pose a threat to humans. However, authorities say they will cull infected cattle to prevent any possibility of them entering the food system. Some 50,000 cows will also be vaccinated. After its discovery in Zambia in 1929, lumpy skin disease was considered an endemic disease in Africa for several decades. However, after 2010, it began to spread to European and Asian countries. Authorities say that although there might be a temporary price increase for Korean Hanu beef, the overall impact on supply and price, including milk prices, is expected to be limited. Ihn Yo-han, Arirang News.
Over at the National Assembly, major changes were spotted today in both the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party, as both try to seek a breakthrough. Yonsei Medical School professor Ihn Yo-han, known as the Blue-Eyed Korean, was named chairman of the ruling party's Innovation Committee, and Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung returned to his party duties after over a month. Our political correspondent Kim Jong-soo explains.
Medical professor Ihn Yo-han is known as the Blue-Eyed Korean. Originally from the U.S., he became South Korea's first special naturalized citizen back in 2012. He's now in charge of changing the dynamics within the ruling People Power Party as the new chairman of its Innovation Committee. Basically, Ihn will now strive to regain voters' trust after the PPP's crushing defeat in a by-election in Seoul's western Gangseogu district. Chairman Ihn told reporters on Monday that he's, quote, pushing for unity in the sense of not hating those with different opinions. He said that many people in the party need to listen, adding there will be no change without sacrifice. People Power Party leader Kim Ki-hyun explained what the Innovation Committee will do.
The Innovation Committee that will be centralized around Chairman Ihn Yo-han will have full autonomy and independence over its composition, scope of work, and agenda, among other things.
Kim especially stressed the importance of reconnecting with the public. This was the same day the main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung returned to his party duties after more than a month. He was recovering from a 24-day hunger strike that was held to protest the Yoon Suk-yeol government. His first message after returning was focused on the people's livelihoods and unity within his party.
We need to unite and work together to bring enough innovation that will meet the people's expectations. I no longer want the consent to arrest incident to slow us down.
The DP leader also gave a rare compliment to the government, saying the DP was in full support of President Yoon's recent decision to increase the number of medical students. This is a bit to tackle the lack of doctors in key fields and the increasing demand for medical services in a rapidly aging society. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Defense companies at the Seoul International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition, or Seoul ADEX 2023, have signed business contracts worth more than $6 billion. The organizers of the country's leading arms exhibition revealed Monday that this is a sharp increase from the contract signed in 2021. They attributed the increase to rising global awareness and trust in Korean defense products. This year's event, which wrapped up Sunday, was the largest ever to be held with the record participation of 550 entities from 35 countries. Overseas military officials reportedly showed great interest in South Korea's locally developed supersonic fighter jet, the KF-21, as well as the K-2 tank and multiple launch rocket system, Chunmoo. On the culture front, with South Korea celebrating October as Culture Month every year, this year's event took place in Sinan-gun County, Jeollanam-do Province, this past weekend. What was worth noticing this year was that an island in the region has transformed into a stage for the Culture Month for the very first time. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin was there.
Way down in the southern part of South Korea is Sinan-gun County in Jeollanam-do Province. This area is made up of more than 1,000 small islands. One of these islands is Cheondo, the host of this year's Culture Month. Korea has celebrated October as Culture Month since 1972 to deepen public appreciation and engagement with the arts and culture. Different places have taken their turn in hosting the celebration, but Cheondo is the first island to do so. One of the highlights this year was a lecture by American artist James Turrell. Hailed as the virtuoso of light, he's known for his large-scale installations using light and space, such as his Sky Space series. Throughout his 6-decade career, Turrell has developed a strong passion for showcasing art in areas that are mostly inaccessible.
We generally look at culture as being in the big cities. Of course, that makes a certain kind of culture as well. And I'm very interested in taking art into nature because then you can have a more powerful expression. I think also it's good sometimes to take a journey to go to art, so that helps prepare you for it.
This idea fits perfectly with Sinan-gun County's Island and Art project, which aims to change its isolated remote islands into places for art. Part of this plan is building the James Turrell Art Museum on Nodae-do Island.
Nodae is the island that I think would be very good for this. I like it partly because there's no bridge, that is, you actually have to journey by boat, another way to get there. And also, this surrounding of water completely is something I think is special.
Another standout is music. Students from a local elementary school put on the Sinan traditional performance Handai, featuring dancing and singing. 104 pianists representing the 1,004 islands of Sinan took the stage, playing classical music to traditional Korean folk songs.
So from hosting this year's Culture Month to its goal of becoming a hub for world-renowned artists, Sinan-gun County is evolving into a new center for arts and culture. 송유진, Arirang News, Sinan.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Hey, Paul.
Hello there.
Let's first start with Asian Para Games. South Korea has its first medal. What can you tell us?
Yes, a silver medal, and it came from Smile Racer herself, the sprinter Jeon Min-jae. It came earlier today, actually, in the 200-meter T36 category. She finished with a time of 31.27 seconds. From lane 5, she got off to a good start and at one point was in the lead, but she finished second behind Xu Yiting of China, who set a new world record of 28.17 seconds. For Jeon Min-jae, her time was a season best. Incredibly, for the 46-year-old legend, the medal was her fourth in as many Asian Para Games. She actually made her debut back in 2008 at the Paralympic Games in Beijing. But the fourth Asian Para Games got underway on Sunday with the opening ceremony, and central to it was the Osmanthus flower, which is the city flower of Hangzhou, the host. The Games run until Saturday, October the 28th.
Right, and moving on to short track speed skating, the ISU World Cup in Montreal, Canada. Some gold medals for South Korea.
Yes, there was 9 medals in total from 11 events, including 4 gold and 4 silver. 3 of the 4 golds were won by the men's team. Hwang Dae-hon, who is also an Olympic gold medalist, of course, won the 1,500 metres with a time of 2 minutes and 23.666 seconds. Hwang also competed in the second 1,000-metre race alongside Park Ji-won, but the two collided mid-race. Park finished 4th, but Hwang was disqualified. But there were more medals to come. Kim Gun-woo won gold in that very 1,000 metres with a time of 1 minute 26.712 seconds. Park Ji-won did leave with a gold medal too, having won the first 1,000-metre final, doing so with a time of 1 minute 24.903 seconds. The three later took part in the 5,000-metre relay along with Jang Song-woo and earned silver, finishing behind Canada. Yet more medals though, as there was a silver from Kim Gun-woo, So Ida, Kim Gi-lee and Shim So-ki in the 2,000-metre relay. And Kim Gi-lee earned the sole gold medal from the women's team, winning another 1,000-metre race for the women. There's also a silver for Lee So-yeon as well, also in the 1,000 metres.
And let's talk about basketball. The new KBL season began over the weekend and did so with crowds not seen in a few years.
Yes, you're quite right. It was the biggest crowd since the 2017-2018 season, 6 years ago. 30,437 fans took in these 6 matches, which is around 1,000 more than last year. The biggest gate was in Busan, where Busan KCC Aegis beat Seoul Samsung Thunders 106-100. 8,780 people took in that one. Last season's champions Anyang KGC began the new season with a defeat, though, losing 89-74 to Seoul SK Knights. 4,210 people watched that one. The KBL said that in total around 690,000 fans watched matches across the whole of last season, which is around 80% of the levels from before the pandemic. The aim now is to get close to how things were before the pandemic.
And finally to baseball. The KBO postseason is now underway.
Yes, you're right. We had the wild card round and now the semi-final playoff has begun. NC Dinos, who beat the Doosan Bears in the wildcard round, began with the semi-playoff with a win. They beat the SSG Landers 4-3 in Sunday's first match. There's a best-of-5 series, and the winners then go into the playoff against KT Wiz, who earned that spot by finishing second in the regular season standings. Then the winners of that series then go through to the Korean series, which will be against the LG Twins, who finish first. Game 2 begins at 6:30 this evening, with SSG really needing to win to make sure they do not have a mountain to climb.
All right, we'll see how that pans out. Thanks for that. See you next week.
Thank you. See you.
Typical autumn weather conditions are in store for the next few days. From now on, temperatures will hover around the seasonal average, with morning temperatures of 12 degrees Celsius in Seoul tomorrow. But central regions will be under the influence of a low-pressure system, which will cause some showers briefly for the daytime. But even with the rain, overall conditions will stay quite warm. As for the overall amount of rainfall, the Seoul metropolitan area will see 5 to 10 millimeters. Gangwon-do, Chungcheong-do provinces will see around 5. Due to unstable atmospheric conditions, thunder and lightning may follow at times. For parts of the East Coast, conditions are especially dry, with dry weather advisories in place. Cold, gusty winds are in the forecast as well, with winds gusting as fast as 20 meters per second. The combination of dry air and strong winds will increase the risk of wildfires, so please take extra precautions. Partly cloudy to overcast skies are expected for the morning hours. Seoul will be starting off at 12 degrees Celsius. Daytime highs in Seoul will get up to 19 degrees, Gwangju 22, Gyeongju will be topping out at 23 degrees. Until Wednesday, parts of central regions will see brief showers. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
I'm live. 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지. 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
Hi, I'm Dan.
Hi, I'm Joel.
And we're about to get on the KTX to go to Busan. Oh my goodness, wow.
살아있네. 부산 곱창. Wow.
That's the best. To try it while we're here.
It's like we're in a different world, like coming from Seoul.
It's a puppy kindergarten, and I'm here to sit in on a class.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hello everyone, it's Monday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. South Korea is seeing a second boom in the Middle East region. This as Seoul and Riyadh inked over 50 MOUs and contracts worth around $15.6 billion, adding to the previous deals worth $29 billion that were signed during Prince Mohammed's visit to Seoul last year. Such an agreement to bolster economic ties came during President Yoon's visit to Saudi Arabia, his first leg of 6-day state visits to Riyadh and Doha. What are the specifics that led the two countries to expand their bilateral economic partnership? And what diplomatic significance does President Yoon's visit to the Middle East have? For more on this, we have invited Professor Min Jung-hoon from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Min, welcome.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being with us. And we also welcome Professor Yang Jun-seok from the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for being with us. All right, first question to our Professor Yang. So I'd like to ask how the overall relationship between South Korea and the Middle East region has been up to now. Presidential office pointed out that the proactive expansion of companies into the Middle East region served as a stepping stone to overcome the oil shock crisis in the 1970s. How so?
Okay, well, during the first oil shock of 1973, Korean development was still in fairly early stages, so we weren't really affected that much by the increase in oil prices. But because of the extra revenue that the Middle Eastern countries received, they started a lot of construction projects, a lot of infrastructure projects, and Korean construction companies were able to make headways in Middle Eastern countries to start a lot of construction projects, and that brought in a lot of needed foreign currency into Korea, so it was a very much a mutually beneficial experience. Now, for the second oil shock in 1979, that was a big shock. Korean oil prices rose by more than 100% in just a couple of weeks, and that was also coupled with the assassination of President Park Chung-hee, so this was one of the worst periods in Korean economic history. Before the second oil shock, we were actually getting our oil through the United States, not directly from Middle Eastern oil producers. But because we suffered a lot of supply bottlenecks because of the oil shock, in 1979, during the second oil shock, 1980, we actually started to build direct distribution channels with the Middle Eastern oil producers themselves, so that we were able to get oil directly, and that helped our petrochemical industries quite a bit.
All right, it must have been a big help for South Korea in many ways. Now, Professor Min, President Yoon is currently in Riyadh right now as part of his state visits to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And this trip is taking place amid conflicts between Israel and Hamas, as well as the Ukrainian war. How significant are state visits like this at such a time?
Well, the President Yoon is making his first state visit to Saudi Arabia and Qatar this time. And the main goal of the visit is to boost the economic and security cooperation, partnerships, and explore the new areas of cooperation beyond energy and construction. And the Saudi Arabia and Qatar are the two of the South Korea's main partners, trading partners in the Middle East, and they are also key players in the regional politics and economy. So the friendly cooperation with these countries is essential to South Korea's economy and the security. And through the state visit this time, South Korea will reinforce the existing cooperative the relationship with Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and will also try to diversify cooperation with them. And Saudi Arabia and Qatar together account for the 38% of South Korea's crude oil imports and 21% of its gas import. So in the aspect of the energy security, they are very important partners to South Korea. So in the summit meetings, President Yoon is expected to discuss ways to stabilize oil and gas supplies, considering growing uncertainty and oil prices volatility caused by the wars in Ukraine and Israel. In addition, South Korea's partnerships with the Middle East countries will go beyond energy and construction to a new stage that includes hydrogen energy, IT, electric vehicles, shipbuilding, defense, and culture and entertainment.
Right.
So in sum, President Yoon's visit to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, this time is very important to secure, first, to secure South Korea's energy security and expand the scope of its cooperation with the Middle East countries to secure the future search engine for its economy.
Right, I see. Like you said, Professor Min, South Korea and Saudi Arabia agreed on several measures to expand cooperation to go beyond construction and energy cooperation. And for this, we need to talk about Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, as the Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman said that South Korea is the most right partner, the optimal partner. What is this Vision 2030?
Basically, we can say that the Saudi Vision 2030 is kind of the ambitious plan to go beyond the Saudi Arabia's oil-centric economy. The Vision 23 is a government program that aims to achieve the goal of the increased diversification economically, socially, and culturally. And the Saudi government first announced it in April 2016. And it lays out targets for diversification and improving competitiveness. And it has three main themes: a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and ambitious nation. The first, the vibrant society projects include urbanization, culture and entertainment, sports and life expectancy, and the thriving economy includes employment, women in the workforce, international competitiveness, public investment fund, and foreign direct investment. And the ambitious nation projects include non-oil revenues, the government effectiveness, electronic government, and non-profit and volunteering. So we can see that the ambitious plan covers almost all walks of life in the country. And Saudi Vision 2030 has been mainly highlighted, as I mentioned earlier today, because it shows a roadmap for moving the country away from the oil-centric economy. So South Korea can be one of the main cooperation partners for the ambitious plan because South Korea has economic development know-how and experience, and South Korea's companies excellent capabilities and skills. And the cooperation between the two countries can be diversified, including energy, construction and infrastructure, investment, and culture.
Right, I see. So for the post-oil era, Saudi Arabia is preparing for mega projects like Neom City, I guess. Well, that being said, Professor Yang, in what ways could South Korea be the most optimal partner for Saudi Arabia?
Okay, well, as I mentioned, Korea does have a long history of working with Saudi Arabia, especially in construction projects. Taking Neom City as an example, Neom City is a $500 billion project, and the city is designed to be financial and cultural hub, and it's also designed to be a smart city where IT is incorporated into the city itself. Korean construction firms are known as very strong competitors in smart city construction, so they will be ideal partners for building a lot of this Neom City projects. And then we just mentioned that the Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries are interested in going beyond the current oil-centered economy. They are especially interested in IT, games and entertainment, financial services, and Korea does have a strong emphasis on a lot of these areas. For example, when the prince came to Korea last year, the party accompanying the prince were very interested in games and entertainment, the K computer games, and the companies like Kakao. The Saudi Arabians were very interested in those companies. They were also seeking investment in those companies, not only investment in Korea, but having these companies invest in Saudi Arabia as well. And then going beyond the oil economy for electric vehicles, some renewable energy sources. Those are all fields that Korea has very strong players in, or those are areas that Korea seeks to become important player in. So in that sense, Saudi Arabia can play a very important role in helping Korean firms get a foothold in the global market for these products and these markets.
Oh, I see. So there were many aspects of South Korea that attracted Saudi Arabia to work together for all those projects. I see. Well, Professor Min, now let's take a look at the specifics of the state visit of President Yoon. So on Saturday, he visited the historical town of Diriyah, where the Saudi investment minister asked South Korean companies to actively participate in Diriyah's development. What is this place, Diriyah, and what is this Giga project about?
Yes, it has been reported that, interestingly, Saudi Arabian officials asked President Yoon to help develop the historical town of Diriyah. And as you mentioned, President Yoon visited the birthplace of the first Saudi state, Diriyah, on Saturday, and met the Saudi investment minister and other government officials there. And they mentioned that they want the South Korean companies to actively participate in the Diriyah's development. It's like a modernization development. And they also showed specific areas of cooperation related to construction, hotels, and restaurants. So the Diriyah development project is one of the 5 giga projects designated by the Saudi government. And the project is estimated at $20 billion, and it envisions the construction of luxury villas, townhouses, the community centers, hospitals, and shopping centers in town. And as you know, this year marks 50 years since South Korean companies began entering the Saudi construction market and established their stepping stone for South Korea to overcome the 1970s energy crisis. So I expect that this year will be another new beginning of the Middle East boom for the upcoming 50 years by working hard with the Saudi Arabian governments in those places.
Right, it must be a great opportunity for South Korean companies to participate in this Giga project. Well, Professor Young, after visiting the historical town, President Yoon had a summit with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And the summit took place nearly a year after the Crown Prince visited Seoul last November. What was agreed back then, and could we see tangible results of those agreements right now?
Okay, well, during the last visit by the prince, Saudi Arabia and Korea agreed on investment of about 29 billion won, $29 billion. And at least according to the government, about 60% of that amount is right now realized or almost realized. They have contracts for various projects. That includes a contract for Samsung engineering and construction, dealing with Oxagon modular market. It's basically a modular construction type of operation, and they've agreed on building a mutual factory with the Saudi Arabian partners. And then there's a COPEC, Korean electric company project, where they agreed to have electric generation, heat generation project that's worth about $799 million. So these projects are coming up faster than expected. Again, about 60% of the amount that they agreed on last year has been signed or is almost ready to be signed.
Right. It's nice to hear how we are seeing tangible results regarding these agreements that we made before last November. Now, Professor Min, South Korea and Saudi Arabia, as you have already mentioned, are trying to make this cooperative efforts go to another level. And that being said, a total of 51 deals and MOUs worth a total of $15.6 billion were signed. And as far as I know, among them was between Saudi Aramco and Korea's National Oil Corporation. What was this deal about?
Yes, basically the deal is about securing the energy security for South Korea. As you mentioned, it is reported that South Korea and Saudi Arabia will sign 51 deals and MOUs worth a total of $15.6 billion. It's a huge money for the two countries. And the new deal will add to the $29 billion worth of MOUs and contracts signed during the Saudi Crown Prince visit to Seoul last November. And the contracts and MOUs cover a wide range of the sectors, including crude oil, auto industry, hydrogen energy, and defense, statistics, and other things. But you talked about the importance of the deals made between the Korea National Oil Corporation and Saudi Aramco. They made the deal in order to create a joint crude oil reserve of 5.3 billion barrels at the storage facility in the South Korean city of Ulsan by 2028. And under the deal, South Korea will have priority purchasing rights to the oil supply and the demand emergency, and earn rent over a 5-year lease period. So considering growing uncertainty and oil price volatility, it will contribute to stabilizing oil and gas supplies in South Korea, and can be a meaningful progress for South Korea's energy security.
Right, I see. So it was for energy security, especially for crude oil and gas. Right. Now, there was also an agreement on automotive industry, Professor Yang, Public Investment Fund, and the Hyundai Motor agreed to sign a car assembly plant. What was this about?
Okay, well, this is an assembly plant. They take what they call complete knockdown kits. That's basically a car that has all the parts but not yet assembled, and they will make a factory in Saudi Arabia that will be able to assemble about 50,000 of these complete knockdown kits that could be sold in Saudi Arabia, other Middle Eastern countries and Northern African countries. This factory is scheduled to begin building in the early part of 2024, and it should be completed in the early part of 2026. And some of these vehicles are probably going to be electric vehicles as well. So this will be an opportunity for Hyundai Motors to increase its exports in the Middle Eastern and Northern African regions.
Right, I see. Professor Yang, one more question. Another deal was an agreement on a hydrogen oasis cooperation initiative. What is this about? And moreover, how are both countries expected to cooperate in the renewable energy sector?
Okay, well, as we just mentioned, Saudi Arabia is interested in going away from fossil fuels and moving into cleaner, renewable fuels. And this hydrogen oasis project is designed to produce clean hydrogen. Now, hydrogen can be produced in many ways, but a lot of times it's made using leftovers from production of oil or gas, and that could be actually very dirty, so it kind of defeats the purpose of having hydrogen as clean energy. This Hydrogen Oasis Cooperation Initiative is designed to produce clean hydrogen that will not produce those kind of hydrocarbons or greenhouse gases. It's actually a bundle of many different projects, and the first few of those projects, including what they call blue ammonia project, has been signed, and those will probably go on very soon. And basically, what Saudi Arabia wants to do is they want to use the money capital that's been built up through these hydrocarbons to move into the energy industries of the future. And energy industries of the future, you will have to make sure that they are clean. So the Saudi Arabians want to make sure that they get into that before other major countries.
Right, we are seeing expansion of cooperation even in the renewable energy sector. All right, good. Now, Professor Min, we are running out of time, but I'd like to ask you this last question. The contracts and MOUs cover a wider range of other sectors as well, from statistics to food and medical products. And I also saw the reports that say that there was even a discussion over large-scale defense industry cooperation. What were details of this?
Well, basically, the contracts and MOUs cover other sectors, as the Professor Yang mentioned, like auto industry, hydrogen energy, defense, statistics, and food and medical products. And most importantly, I think that South Korea and Saudi Arabia are in the final stage of talks of a large-scale defense industry cooperation, such as anti-aircraft defense systems and firearms. But the two governments rejected to reveal the details of the deals because it is directly related to the national security and the country's military capabilities. So we cannot know the details of the deal. But we can see that the two countries agreed to have the huge amount of the transaction for the military cooperation. In addition, the South Korea's Hyundai Motors and the Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund signed a huge contract to jointly invest around $400 million to build a car assembly plant in Saudi Arabia, and the plant will be designed to produce annually 50,000 electric and gas-powered cars starting in 2026. And more important, it will become South Korea's first electric vehicle production hub in the Middle East. And the two countries also agreed to the Hydrogen Oasis cooperation initiative, as Professor Yang mentioned. And the two countries also signed the agreement between the statistic agencies to share information and material about the statistical production. And for your question, considering the Saudi Arabia want to move forward the future-oriented economy and strengthen its security, I think that South Korea's capabilities and experiences in advanced technologies and defense industry will mainly boost the cooperation between the two countries.
All right, I see. Hope we could see elevation of ties between the two countries as we go on with these projects. All right, well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Professor Min, for your time and insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Professor Yang, for your time and insights as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도